Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining our webinar today. First of all, I have to share our plan for today because during our presentation, I'm going to cover some topics related to best practices in building our network security strategy in order to avoid network level attacks. And in the second part of presentation, I will focus more on the new concept, approaches, and models we should adopt actually in order to keep a decent level of protection of our network assets. I mean, for example, the zero trust model, the SASE model, which is the secure access service edge, the new model of Gartner, as well the DIE, which is distributed immutable ephemeral model. Maybe you heard something about this model, but we're going to clarify a bit more aspects related to those new strategies. So we're planning at the end of the conversation to have a Q&A session, so be prepared to address some questions. We are planning to have enough time to answer the questions at the end of my presentation. So again, welcome everybody. I'm going to skip my self-introduction because Pritama she did it already. Instead, I would like to start with a big thank you addressed to all of you, the IT guys, including the IT security guys, providing services and support during those difficult times, keeping people working from home connected to their businesses and connected to their peers, providing high quality services 24/7. So again, big thank you guys being in the first line of activity related to IT support and security services. If you're talking about this particular times, I mean the COVID outbreak, you are seeing a lot of new issues related to cybersecurity. Why? Because it was even a question before we start our conversation. The attackers are taking anytime advantage of the opportunities, and anytime there are something new, some changes in our life, in our organization. So the attackers are taking advantage of exploiting some vulnerabilities associated to those new times. And I have some examples here: phishing, security, social engineering techniques are, to name just a few of those new vulnerabilities. A lot of phishing attacks. Some of the attacks we do believe are just originated by nation state actors, and so we're going to discuss a bit during the presentation about this. So according to Interpol, we have a top list of the cyber threats associated to those times, to COVID-19 outbreak. And as well, they do recommend us a checklist of security controls, additional security controls we should implement and should be aware, should pay enough attention in our organization in order to avoid dangerous attacks, most of them related to networks, because they are using network vectors. As long people are working from home, are connected from home, and not any time the security it was properly configured before. It is actually such behavior. We're seeing this behavior. Most of the organizations are forced to adopt very accelerated path for digital transformation of the organization. And a lot of organizations who are not, including government organizations, public services, they were not prepared to handle this. And I will start just reviewing some basics related to cybersecurity framework. I guess most of you familiar with the NIST cybersecurity framework, including in those stages, 5 stages: identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. Some specific activities of considering and implementing security controls in order to protect our assets and our business assets. Okay, so another useful model to consider, I think, is this one. Yeah, defense in depth protection. Yeah, it's coming from the military frameworks, and in most of the situations, we're focusing on protecting efficiently the data, which is stored in databases. And in order to protect the databases, you should protect the applications, having direct access to the applications. Both data and applications are stored by hosts, so you have to protect the host. But it's something to consider very carefully. It's something to consider very carefully related to network assets protection. I mean, it's about internal network protection, perimeter protection when connecting to the public networks. So we are focusing the conversation on those particular layers. As well, if you are still keeping the conversation at a fundamental level, we should consider the attack chain model, yeah, which is very popular. So we have to identify the stages of an attack. So that should be a threat agent, cyber criminals, employees, activists, nation states attack, terrorists, or competitors, yeah, competitor corporations. So you should identify the reason why those guys are targeting your business assets. And should be a reason anytime. You should identify a reason. The reasons may be different. And those guys are using attack vectors. Yeah, they're identifying some attack vectors, using the tools, and the tools are honestly available to anyone nowadays. So if you're reviewing just the content and information related to the attack tools, which are available on public sites, open platforms, we're using for pen testing as well those tools, but the same tools may be used by the attackers. I'm not talking only about the dark sites, yeah, the dark web. But we're talking as well public sites. Yeah, for example, on GitHub or similar sites, you can see a lot of information about the potentially attack tools and vectors. And the attackers are using those attack vectors. They're identifying some weaknesses in the security configuration of organizations. So they're identifying missing or misconfigured security controls and doing some exploitation using the tools they were able to identify. They are generating a technical impact on the assets or functions or processes in organization, and this one definitely is generating a business impact. So this is the flow scenario of an attack. So just to have this very clearly in mind for the next steps of our conversation. And if you're talking about network attacks, we are identifying a lot of typical attacks, yeah, using different attack vectors. Yeah, you are familiar with such kind of attacks like distributed denial of service, man-in-the-middle attack, injection attacks, application level attacks, so privilege escalation. So it's a long list of such attacks. But I think it's important to consider as well, beside analyzing the popular vectors for the attacks. I have here a report of Rapid7, so identifying in the list the main attack vectors used by the attackers. But I think it's important as well to consider the timeline for attacks. What you can see, most of the attacks are happening in very short time. So less than 1 hour, it's enough to compromise the full environment of a company. Wow, this is important to consider, because according actually this presentation, yeah, this report, we have to act very fast actually in order to react very fast to consider a proactive strategy in order to block the attacks. Because if you're relying on reactive strategy, I'm afraid it's not an efficient strategy. As well, I have another report here of FireEye, which is displaying very clearly that a lot of vulnerabilities that may be exploited by the attackers are exploited as 0 days. So at the time, there is not, the majority of the attacks are related to vulnerabilities associated to 0-day exploits. So there is no patch available, but in the same time, you can identify a huge number of vulnerabilities exploited even after the patch it was issued. Yeah, more than 40%. Yeah, that means what? There is no mechanism of patching, updating, reviewing the security controls in order to protect our assets. This is real life, so we should be aware about this. On the other hand, if you're considering the attack landscape, you are seeing a lot of network-related attacks, like distributed denial of service attacks, are not considered as an attack, final attack itself, yeah, as such attack, but it's just an evasion technique used in order to hide or to amplify the attacks of some other attack techniques. So it's a combination anytime between the attack techniques. For example, a distributed denial of service attack may confuse the protection barriers, the protection strategies like intrusion prevention system, intrusion detection systems, other research to hide, for example, the scanning activities, or maybe use, for example, on other stages of initial compromise, for example, as an evasion technique, or as an evasion technique for the final mission of the attack that want to extract the data. Yeah, just to make our systems do not identify, do not generate a protection system, do not generate alert, reducing the efficiency of our protection strategy. We should be aware about this combination of techniques used in a TTP combination by the attackers in order to maximize the impact of their attacks. About network protection best practices, I'm not considering to handle one by one those techniques, best practices. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with most of them. I would insist a bit about to consider this uncovering hidden threats. This is very important as a proactive strategy. Threat intelligence concept, we're going to discuss a bit more about this. Well, this is very important to consider by the organization as in their protection strategy. If you're considering about implementing security, this conversation about implementing security controls in the organization, so we are relying a lot on network protection systems, including firewalls, IDS, IPSs, honeypots, and so on. Intrusion detection systems may be very complex sometimes, and I have a picture here presenting the complex model of intrusion detection system. What you are seeing that such intrusion detection system, it's relying a lot on machine learning, for example, AI, including AI tools, yeah, because otherwise such system could not be so efficient. And we have to consider all the strategies of machine learning, artificial intelligence to better protect our assets. But the question is, any organization should afford to use such complex systems? Most probably not using internal resources. That could be too expensive, too difficult to implement such complex system in the internal network. So integrated unified threat management solutions started to be more and more popular, especially for small and medium organizations. Yeah. Because sometimes they're using appliances. Those platforms are providing some appliances, integrating firewall intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, VPNs, anti-spam solutions, antivirus solutions, everything in the same platform, in a single appliance. It's a big market for this. You can see the Gartner Magic Quadrant related to this, and especially for small and medium enterprises. So this solution could be very, very efficient. In the same time, I would like to bring into our conversation this topic of organizing people, cybersecurity teams in your organization. A very common approach it's that one to build a pen testing strategy in an organization to check the efficiency of implementation of security controls, to check if how vulnerable are the assets, the business environment of your organization to network security attacks, especially, and yeah, including different approaches for tests. You can see as approach in pen testing, we have white box, black box, gray box. You could use different attack vectors, external, internal, or combined in an APT style attack. Different techniques used, because you are simulating actually the activity of the attackers in order to see if the implementation, security implementation of the strategy is enough. The security controls implemented in the organizations are good enough. That implementation is good enough to keep the attackers away, to block the attack. So those are the activities, the stages of activities. So in the pen testing, yeah, we're considering documenting very well. Yeah, intelligence gathering in a lot of situations using open source intelligence gathering. We have plenty of platforms and tools for this, and simulating the activity of the attackers, identifying some entry points, yeah, and to the network, and after that, doing exploitation, so compromising the systems with different scripts, malware, different attack tools, initiating a lateral movement activity, yeah, doing data exfiltration, and after that, providing reporting. Yeah, this is the goal of the penetration testing activity, to provide a very useful report, including recommendations how to fix the issues, how to block the vulnerabilities, and so on. This is the generic model of penetration testing. The pen testers are using different tools and platforms specially designed for this, to help their activity. Well, those tools, I have to admit, may be used by the attackers. They are maybe inspiring each other, because the idea is to use the tools which are actually simulating in a realistic mode the activity of real attackers. And the attackers, sometimes we have to consider very complex scenarios, because the attackers are very, very smart. Just implementing security controls in organizations like firewalls, IDS does not, it's in a static mode, does not help you too much, because the attackers are using different techniques to bypass your protection barriers, your network protection barriers. And we can consider, for example, the firewall evasion techniques. I have a list here on the screen of common techniques used by the attackers to bypass the firewall protection. And even more complex techniques they're using in order to bypass the intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention systems, yeah, to still being successful in targeting the victim systems. A very common technique is that this one, to use not just technology to avoid the detection of the attacks, techniques used by the attackers, but they are using a lot social engineering, because they are targeting the weakest link in an organization. So I have just an example here. A document sent as an attachment. Normally it's a spreadsheet or a Word document. You're invited to enable content, just to see in a proper mode the content of this document. And once you're doing this, clicking this button, it's enabling the macros, and the macros are running behind, launching the payload and exploiting the information from your computer, exfiltrating to a command control center. This is a very common technique used by the attackers in order to bypass the protection strategies. You don't need to be, an admin, a local admin on the computer to make in order to make this attack possible. The standard user could enable a macros using that button of enable content, and well, the exploitation could run. What I'm saying, as a pen tester, we should consider very complex scenarios in order to build our our penetration testing projects, because the attackers are using different techniques, and we have to simulate potential activities in order to bypass the protection strategies. For example, web application scenario, common web application scenario, which is emulating the activity of pen testers are emulating the activity of the hackers. So using different techniques of exploitation, checking the vulnerabilities associated to different techniques like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, and so there is a long list of web application vulnerabilities because we're talking about this, and we should be familiar with different platforms and tools used for pen testing, like proxy tools, Burp Suite. We have just a list in the left side of the tools that may be used in order to identify and to test the existence of those vulnerabilities in such complex scenario. So what I mean, it's as a pen tester, you should be prepared. You should be a very skilled guy, in order to update anytime the information related to the latest TTPs in order to provide a very efficient activity. So if you're talking about how to organize the cybersecurity guys in organization, we are combining, we are organizing the people traditionally in the red team, and as well in the blue team. But we have the new model using purple team. Purple team is not a physical team. Purple team is a virtual team, including people from the red team and blue team, and organizing some tabletop exercises, in a complex scenario to build a better or to update the protection strategy. This is actually the model, red team attack simulation model. Including all stages of the attack, elevation of privilege, lateral movement, simulating connections to command control center, and so on. This is the attack simulation, and we should add at the activity of in top of activity of red team, we should add activity specific to purple team. For example, tabletop exercises, building complex scenarios and discussing together the best strategy to implement in order to block the attack. So it's a combined activity from different teams in an organization to be more efficient. If you are looking just shortly in this picture, about red team findings, what you can find, identifying the vulnerabilities, what kind of vulnerabilities. A lot of them are associated to network environments, like lack of network segregation, limited network monitoring, using old protocols, no egress filtering, and so on. So those are the findings we should be aware and to fix the issues related to this, implementing proper security controls. If we are considering the red team kill chain approach, including specific activities, according to the model of Lockheed Martin, recon, delivery, foothold, persist, move, elevate, and exfiltrate, we are considering as well the related activity of the blue team for attack detection. So for each part, for each component of the kill chain, we should identify the response of the blue team when implementing security controls. But this is just for attack detection. I'm afraid it's too late for an organization just considering this strategy, attack detection. The best strategy is that one to do attack disruption following the kill chain components. You have to disrupt the attack. So for this reason, we have to use more complex tools. You are expecting to have a very quick reaction, because otherwise you cannot deal in a proper mode with those attacks. That could be too late, to stop an attack with a reactive approach. I think this model is very useful, cyber kill chain matrix. And I'm happy to share an example of such metrics, because you have in the left side, you have the phases of the kill chain. You are identifying the phases of the kill chain, and you have here, the response expected, detect, deny, disrupt, degrade. And in each cell of this matrix, you can identify the appropriate security control that you should implement, and some best practices in the right side. So it's good to design for any organization when building the security strategy to build such metrics, and according that could be customized based on your particular environment. Threat intelligence, it's very important to be considered. Again, if you're talking about threat intelligence, we're talking about a proactive approach. We're talking about the latest TTPs, the latest potential incident that could affect your organization. And many organizations are actually building such teams. And those teams, threat intelligence teams, are actually feeding feeding the teams of incident responders, SOC analysts, with a lot of information that could be useful to prevent attack. It's about the proactive approach, not just about reactive approach. And a very useful model is this one of MITRE. You are familiar probably with MITRE attack. It's a very popular site providing a lot of useful guidance related to tools, techniques of the attackers, especially very useful when you are analyzing the APT group's activity, and because you're saying who is behind, trying to do some attribution and trying to identify the techniques used by each APT group, and you have multiple views of this site. It's very useful, and I would like to show you, for example, a tool associated to attack. It's the MITRE Navigator, because you can, for example, you can actually consider different APT groups. For example, selecting the information I'm maybe I'm building a new layer, and identifying the activities, specific activities for a particular APT group, and you can see what kind of tools they're using on all stages of a MITRE attack model, which is similar to that one of cyber kill chain, but it's a bit customized because it's including multiple categories of activities. For example, I built a layer with the tools the techniques used by APT3 group, which is a popular advanced persistent threat group. And I have here another layer presenting the tools used by APT29, which is it's a Russian APT group, and you can see the techniques they are using for each stages of the attack. If you're clicking on each of them, it's represented in a particular color, so you can see the technique. There is a long list of technique, and you can see in this matrix, enterprise metric, you can see the specific activities and the specific tools used by such APT group. And if you want to make some associations between APT groups, because sometimes you are seeing similar attack techniques, maybe there is a connection between, you never know. You can see, for example, here, the tools used by the techniques used by the APT3 in red color, the techniques used by APT29 in yellow color, and in green, you can see the common techniques. Sometimes this is useful. You can identify network-related attack vectors in those techniques, in the big list of techniques, and you can identify some common techniques, making some associations sometimes between the activity of different advanced persistent threat group. For example, they are using scheduled tests, they're using scripting, they're using PowerShell as well, both of the groups. they're using again scheduled tasks, even for this privilege escalation task. They're using common port just to hide the attack, to cover the attacks. So it's a very useful model to be considered when analyzing the threat against this one of MITRE attack. Okay, so we have to consider as well some, I did promise you, to have a conversation about the new models we should probably adopt in configuring our network protection strategy, to update our strategies, to update the procedures of implementing the security controls, to update the catalog of security control in an organization based on the new models. One of the new popular model is this one, zero trust model, and I have here the implementation of the Microsoft for the zero trust model. You know, the principles of zero trust are verify explicitly everything, use the least privilege access, and use the model of assume breach. And implementing some tools. This is the framework of Microsoft to implement zero trust, like multi-factor authentication, policy-based adaptive access, microsegmentation, automation, adoption of intelligence and AI, data classification and protection. Those are some tools to drive the implementation of zero trust model. It's just an example. Another model I would like to tell you about is this one of services which are considering to implement the architecture of the services and the strategy of implementing the services, security services in organization, because you know we are relying on MSSPs, managed security service provider services. We're relying on another model which is managed detection and response, providing better capabilities. There is actually a scale of implementation of such services. We are discussing as well about, because we're starting from the basic strategy, there's centralized log management, which is honestly not providing the best protection. But after that, considering the services provided by different providers, there is another model of co-managed CM, system information event management, co-managed system, and a model which is promoted by Gartner is this one of CM plus SOC implementation virtually in the cloud environment, SAS as a service, SIEM as a service being an option of implementation of this. It's helping especially small and medium organizations to better protect their assets, because otherwise that could be too high cost if they want to implement this internally. I have in this picture the representation of the model, security model based on Azure implementation, so including actually the help of cloud services, which is promoted by Microsoft AP, Advanced Threat Protection Model. You can see, as a client, you can implement some limited model. You have some limited model to implement here, but everything is managed from the cloud. ATP, it's a platform running in the cloud. So it's including machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so everything being managed from the cloud in the cloud platform. So this is apparently the best strategy to be adopted. And if you're talking about the upcoming models, some other upcoming models, I would say that this model is the traditional model, data center centric. You have a data center, so CDN defining a CDN, content delivery network environment, the enterprise data center. So we have multiple connections from different locations. You are connecting even to cloud from here. But this model seems to be an obsolete model. The new model promoted by Gartner last year, actually they did launch this concept, is this one of secure access service edge. SASE. What is doing this? It's actually unified all services, providing convergence for all our security services in the cloud environment. So not keeping the traditional model of the data center centric, but converging all security related services in the cloud. And I have some, another representation of this model. So it's a convergence between network as a service and network security as a service, everything in the cloud. And this platform, Secure Access Service Edge, it's unifying actually the access in a software defined model. Well, this seems to be a model definitely to consider for our next design of the security strategy. Why? Because actually the cloud provider, they have the power to implement such model to keep your resources protected. Yesterday at the Build conference, you know, it's a virtual conference anymore, the Build, the largest conference of Microsoft for developers. You can still join because it's still running today. Well, it was Microsoft, they did announce a supercomputer they're going to use for artificial intelligence purpose. No less than 285,000 cores for processors, 10,000 graphical processor units. The connection speed is 400 gigabits per second. So it's an impressive, it's a top 5 in the top 5 most powerful computers in the world. And they're planning to use this to provide open AI, open artificial intelligence. And of course, we could benefit if you're in order to design our next cybersecurity strategy from this advantage using such big power, computing power. And another model besides SASE, again, I told you about zero trust model, about SASE, and which is Secure Access Service Edge, the model of Gartner. And there is a new model I did found recently. It was a presentation this year in an RSA conference in February. So about a new model that could adopt, maybe replacing the old model, CIA model, confidential integrity and availability, the CIA triad. What is about this? So it's just a basic observation. We're not talking about the security related services in this picture. We're talking about, for example, protection against DDoS attacks. Well, what's the best strategy? Distributing the services. Okay, this is the best strategy to fight against DDoS attacks. Even this strategy, it was not originally designed for security. The best strategy in order to protect our data, our information, considering blockchain, is the strategy of immutable, changes. If there are some changes, somewhere maybe related to an attack, data may be easy changing, reversing to the previous stage. In the blockchain strategy, we're familiar. So is the best protection for integrity, honestly. And if you're considering, for example, platforms like Docker, microservices, containerization, maybe this could be one of the best protection techniques for confidentiality, because actually attacker persistence could be hard in such situation. The risk may be avoided very easily because all information is ephemeral. You are not exposing high valuable information in a single place in your organization. So this model, DIE, distributed immutable ephemeral, may be the next model replacing the old triad confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Who knows? That could be. This is the model suggested by that researcher in the RSA, Sunil Yu, in the RSA conference this year. Instead, because now we're focusing the protection strategy, the traditional protection strategy. Let's enlarge a bit this this image. So it's focusing on identifying the most important assets, protecting them, and detecting the attack. But this is not a very easy job. It's consuming a lot of resources to implement an efficient protection strategy for all those assets. Instead, maybe the DIE model, it's focusing on respond and recover strategy. So using limited resources to provide a protection strategy according to this model, distributed, immutable, ephemeral. So everything, even you are targeted by attack, everything could be recovered very easily. There is no big pain if you're losing some data. So everything is distributed. Everything could be recovered very easily. You're not exposing entirely huge databases to an attack. So maybe we have to think a bit of this model. I think that could be a very useful model for the next years to be adopted. So I think we are at the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for watching this presentation. I think now is time for questions, right?